In this lesson, we're going to explore some of the more advanced features of S3. S3 is a lot more than just an object store. You can do light, static website hosting. It has object expiration so that objects can be deleted out on schedule. It has encryption options. It allows for versioning, logging, and direct from browser upload to S3. Also allows multi-part file uploads, requester pays, and BitTorrent support. Let's look at each of these one by one. First up is static website hosting. You can easily CNAME a static website to a domain name that you own. It allows index documents, which allow a document to be shown at the top level of your domain. It also allows support for error documents, such as 301s, 302s, 404s, and so forth. You can put your own custom document up for each of these. Also has key prefix routing rules, so that you can route certain objects with a key prefix to other places inside of your website. Another great feature of S3 is object expiration, or lifecycle management. You can archive or delete objects on schedule a certain number of days after they're written. Glacier can also restore to original after a certain number of days. You can also do this on demand. There's excellent support for this through the web console. Another great feature of S3 are the encryption options it provides. It provides native encryption with something called SSE, or server-side encryption. This allows each object to get a specific encryption key pair. Those key pairs are stored separately from the object, and they're used to encrypt and decrypt the object. The object itself is stored in S3 encrypted. SSE enables any applications where you need data encrypted at rest. You can also encrypt in transit with SSL, or roll your own encryption at rest. You could encrypt before putting into S3 and then decrypt after taking out. This requires client-side key management and is a bit messy and risky. If you lose your keys, you could lose all of your objects. S3 also supports versioning. You can enable versioning at the bucket level, and it does cascade. Subsequent writes to any object inside of that versioned bucket create a new version. It does, however, trump lifecycle management, and each version is stored as a complete copy. Once you turn it on, you cannot turn it back off. Please be very careful and make sure that you're doing the right thing when you enable versioning. S3 also allows for logging to maintain access logs at the bucket level. You can log the IP, the operation that was performed, the date, and so forth. This can be enabled and disabled at any time. Make sure when you do this that you store your logs in another bucket. If you store them ancestrally inside of the same bucket, you're going to find that you're logging every log request, and it can get very, very messy. S3 also supports a direct from browser upload, and this is an awesome feature of it. You can grant permissions to users to upload directly into your S3 bucket. This uses IAM and STS, or the Secure Token Service, to generate a signed URL for your bucket or object. For more information on this, you can look at the IAM deck. You can then deliver the user an HTML form with the fields embedded and the action itself set to S3. By this action being set to S3, the form will post directly into S3, and the user doesn't need to go through any EC2 instances of yours. This URL has an excellent write-up of this feature. When you do a direct-to-browser upload, there's a 5 GB limitation on file size. In truth, any single object you upload to S3 can only be 5 GB. If you want to go above that 5 GB limitation, you have to use multi-part file upload. Multi-part file upload is limited to the SDK, be that Java, iOS, Ruby, PHP, and so forth. Essentially, the client will chunk a file into pieces. They'll upload each to S3 separately, and then the client closes the file. Each of these pieces also must be under 5 GB, but S3 can reassemble those chunks into a single file on the S3 side. This allows for start and stop of a partial upload, and the uploaded parts will not need to be re-uploaded. You can also start uploading before you have all of the chunks, and the total file size limit on this is 5 TB. Again, each of the chunks can be no larger than 5 GB. This URL has excellent information about how to do multi-part file uploads. Another feature of S3, Requester Pays, can be very useful for partner and client billing. The partner or client has to be an AWS customer, and the anonymous or world access to the bucket will be disabled. If you do have content that you want to share with the partner and you want to have them pay directly for the storage and the transfer, you can use Requester Pays to enable that. It can be turned off later. S3 also provides support for BitTorrent. BitTorrent is a P2P protocol for high-scale file distribution. The clients themselves, after they've downloaded part of the file, become distributors of the file, therefore bypassing S3 directly and saving on S3 access costs. With a large enough network, it makes the user's files also download faster. BitTorrent is an excellent choice for distributing popular file formats such as video and music. The maximum file size is, however, limited to 5 GB. There are many popular clients that exist, with MicroTorrent perhaps being one of the most popular. This URL has more information about how to deal with S3 BitTorrent support. Despite its name, S3 is anything but simple. It's very multifaceted, changing all the time, with the latest example perhaps being Glacier. When you start using the advanced features of S3, the lowest hanging fruit is simply migrating all static assets to S3. Many customers first interact with Amazon via S3 by hosting their images, CSS, JavaScript, and other static files inside of S3. Hosting static assets out of S3 also relieves a big load on your EBS and ephemeral disks, freeing them up to do more important work. The cost to both serve and store out of S3 is much lower, and it's actually more performant than EBS and ephemeral. The next step is to try to leverage Glacier for archival, locking down access, setting up lifecycle policies, investigating advanced uses, such as website hosting and direct to S3 uploads, as well as perhaps versioning and logging.